If you're a salted caramel lover, you have to try these chocolate and caramel Thumbprint cookies. They're a super pretty cookie, especially if you take the time to garnish them with a little coarse sea salt on top. These cookies will be perfect pretty much any time of the year, but especially for the upcoming holiday season. I hope that you enjoy making these cookies, and also don't forget to subscribe and stick around for lots more holiday baking content. To make these salted caramel chocolate Thumbprint cookies, we're first going to start out with making the dough. Add 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder along with 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon of fine sea salt. Whisk those together, and then we're moving on to beat the butter and the sugar together. You'll need half a cup of unsalted butter, half a cup of firmly packed brown sugar, and 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. Beating these together until they're light and fluffy helps add airiness to the cookies. Next, we're going to add 1 large room temperature egg along with half a tablespoon of vanilla extract. Mix those just until everything is well combined, and then we're going to start adding in the dry ingredients. I like to add these in 2 batches, and make sure to turn your mixer only on low speed. We don't want the flour and the dry ingredients going everywhere. Finally, add in your last batch of dry ingredients and mix until the dough comes together. At this point, the dough will be a little bit on the sticky side, and that's totally fine because our next step is chilling the dough for 3 hours or even up to overnight. Basically, we just want the dough to firm up a little bit so that way it doesn't spread too much when we go to bake it in the oven. All you'll need to do is wrap the cookie dough in some plastic wrap or parchment paper and place it in the fridge. Once the dough has firmed up, it's time to grab a 2 tablespoon cookie scoop, and then we're going to make little balls for the cookies. Roll that ball of dough in some granulated sugar. This helps give the cookie a really pretty texture and look when it comes out of the oven. You'll keep doing this until you've used up all of the dough. This recipe should make you about 16 cookies. Place each of these balls about 1 to 2 inches apart on a large baking sheet lined with parchment paper. Then you're going to use your thumb or the end of a spatula to make an indent into each cookie. This is the part that will fill with caramel. If the dough begins to crack on the outside, simply use your hands to push it back together. Then throw these cookies in a preheated 350-degree oven for 12 to 14 minutes until the cookie edges are set. If any of the indents puffed up during the baking process, just use a small spoon to push them back down. Then transfer the cookies to a cooling rack to completely cool. Next, we're moving on to making our homemade caramel. First, you'll grab a stick of butter and cut it into 8 tablespoon pieces. Next, add 1 cup of granulated sugar along with 1/4 cup of water to a medium-sized heavy bottom saucepan. Mix everything until it's combined, and then cover with a lid and let the sugar boil over medium heat until everything is completely melted. This usually takes about 2 to 4 minutes. From here, remove the lid and continue cooking until the sugar begins to darken. At this stage, you do not want to stir the caramel. If it appears to be burning, you can gently swirl it in the pan to keep it from burning. Once the sugar reaches an amber color about 4 to 6 minutes later, you can stir in half a cup of heavy cream. Be careful during this process because the caramel will bubble and slightly splatter, which is why you want to make sure your pan is large enough to accommodate this. Next, we're going to add the butter in 1 cube at a time and stir until it's completely dissolved in the sauce. We're also adding in half a teaspoon of fine sea salt and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract for some additional flavor. Once you're done and everything's combined and the butter is completely melted, you should be left with a smooth, creamy sauce. Allow the caramel to cool slightly to room temperature, and then you're going to use a spoon to gently fill each of the Thumbprint holes with caramel. This is a little bit of a messy project, so you're welcome to put parchment paper underneath wherever you're filling the cookies to make cleanup a little easier. Finally, garnish with some coarse salt, and then place the cookies in the refrigerator for 15 to 20 minutes to allow the caramel to firm up. These cookies can be stored in an airtight container at room temperature for up to 5 days, but I'm not sure that you'll need to wait that long because they'll probably get eaten up. The full recipe along with tips and tricks are linked in the description below.